Hi, in this video we're going to look at the second of the major things we're going to have to learn in the A2 differentiation course, and that is the thing called the quotient rule. Quotient is the answer to a division sum, and so basically we're going to see how can we go about deriving a function that is a division. How can we deal with that situation? So here I've got f of x is this function x minus 3 being divided by x plus 2. Well, I can rewrite this as being x minus 3 times x plus 2 to the minus 1. Now I've taken this from a situation where it was a quotient to a situation where it's now a product. And we've just dealt with the product rule. So we should be able to expand this thing as a product. So once again, if I go and call this thing over here u and that thing over there v, and just remind ourselves that dy dx is going to be u dv dx plus v du dx. That's the formula that we've got. Remember, it's on the formula sheet. Let's go about deriving this product that we've got over here. So it's going to be x minus 3. And I've now got to take the derivative of v. Now v is x plus 2 to the minus 1. It's a compound function. So if I want to find dv dx, I'm first of all going to say it's going to be this, minus 1 times x plus 2 to the minus 2. And then I've got to derive what's inside the bracket, and that's going to be 1. So in other words, I'm going to have this. So tidy that up. Minus x plus 2 to the minus 2. So that's what dv dx is. So I'm going to have minus x plus 2 to the minus 2. And then I'm going to add to that. It's now going to be v, which is going to be x plus 2 to the minus 1 times b by du dx. And du dx, that's a simple enough one to do. That's simply going to be 1. Now, let's just tidy that up a little bit and move away from the situation where I've got all these negative powers. So what am I going to have here? I'm going to have minus x minus 3 over x plus 2 squared. And here I'm going to have 1 over x plus 2. Well, that's quite interesting. I've now got two fractions, each with a denominator of x plus 2 as a factor. So in fact, I can join these two together. I can get a common denominator, and that common denominator is going to be x plus 2 all squared. What am I going to have? I'm going to have minus x minus 3 plus, and this bracket over here is going to be x plus 2. And just for tidiness sake, I'm going to rewrite that the other way around. We're going to make this, put the positive thing at the start, and then have my negative after that. And what have I got? Well, if we look back at where we started from, what we appear to have over here, this was v, and this was u. That was our u, and that was our v. But we can also think that this thing was in fact multiplied by 1, and 1 is du dx. And this thing was also multiplied, the second element was also multiplied by 1. And that is dv dx. and between them I've got a minus sign. And what have I got down the bottom over here? I've got v squared. And that is what our quotient rule actually works out to be. Go down to the actual rule itself, down over here. The quotient rule says if you've got a quotient, u over v, then the derivative of this thing is going to be the denominator multiplied by the derivative of the numerator minus the numerator times by the derivative of the denominator all over the denominator squared. That is the quotient rule. So now we've got our quotient rule. Let's try it out on some examples. So always a good idea just to identify what our two parts are, u and v. And at this stage, it's a good idea just to find the derivatives of each of those things. So I know that du dx, that's going to give me 2x, and dv dx, that's going to leave me with 1. Right, having got that bit sorted, I can say, right, g dash of x is going to be the denominator, v, that's x minus 3, multiplied by the derivative of the numerator. Derivative of 2x plus 1, that's going to be 2x. Minus the numerator. The numerator was x squared plus 1. And I'm going to multiply that by the derivative of the denominator. The derivative of v was simply 1. And all of that's got to be divided by the denominator squared, x minus 3 squared. Just make sure you put that squared on. A lot of people forget it, and that causes issues. If we just tidy up the top line now, what am I going to have? I'm going to have 2x squared minus 6x minus x minus 1, minus x squared minus 1 rather, all over x minus 3 all squared. And when I tidy that up, I'm going to get x squared minus 6x minus 1 all over x minus 3 all squared. And I leave it like that. I don't try and expand the bottom line. I don't need to. If I could have factorized the top, I would have, to see if I can reduce it down anyway, but I can't, so I just leave it like that. Next example is this one over here. Making it slightly more complicated by having the square root down the bottom line. Well, we can always make that look slightly different. So I've got x cubed minus 5, and this is going to be divided by x plus 5 to the power of a half. So I know that my u is going to be 3x minus 5, and I know that my v is going to be x plus 5 to the power of a half. We need to be careful with these, especially with the v. So let's figure out what our different parts are. Du dx, well, that's simply going to be 3x squared, easy enough. Dv dx, that's going to be slightly trickier. I'm going to have to use the chain rule on this. So it's going to be a half x plus 5 to the power of minus a half, and then I'm going to multiply that by the derivative of what's inside the bracket, which is just 1. So in other words, it's going to be a half x plus 5 to minus a half. I'm going to leave it like that. I'm not going to put the root sign in. Okay, so now we need to go back and use the formula just to remind ourselves again. Dy dx is going to be v times du dx minus u times dv dx all over v squared. Initially, you'll need to take your time while doing these. Obviously, as you practice it more, you become more familiar with them, you'll be able to shoot through these a lot quicker. So, v, that is x plus 5 to the power of a half. Du dx, we got that as being 3x squared. Minus u, which was x cubed minus 5, and we multiplied that by dv dx, which is going to be a half of x plus 5 to the minus a half. And all of that is going to be over x plus 5 to the half. That's what v is. And I'm going to square that. So, tidying up here, what have we got? I've got 3x squared times x plus 5 to the half minus a half, not 3x squared, it's going to be x cubed, minus 5 times x plus 5 to the minus a half, and all of that is going to be over x plus 5 to the half squared. That's simply going to be over x plus 5. Why have I got x plus 5 all of a sudden? Have I made a mistake somewhere? Yes, I have. No, I haven't. No, that's all good. We could possibly have done some simplifications with the x plus 5s. So I could take out that, but I'm just going to leave it at this stage, leave it like that. So hopefully that makes sense to you. You need to now go and practice this. Goodbye.